Episode 2 of Lanterns expands the mystery from the premiere while introducing a much bigger threat. John learns about the Manhunters, dangerous synthetic beings that can hide among other species and destroy entire worlds. At the same time, Hal continues investigating Will Macon and the strange activity around Rushville. The episode also focuses on the growing tension between Hal and John. Hal still treats John like a trainee who needs to learn through experience, while John is becoming increasingly frustrated by how much Hal keeps from him. As John begins investigating the Manhunter on his own, the episode makes it clear that becoming a Green Lantern will require more than simply learning how to use the ring. The episode starts with Hal waking John by dumping an ice bucket on him. It's another example of Hal's unusual approach to training. Instead of carefully explaining how the ring works, Hal simply tells John to think flight and expects him to figure it out. John struggles and can't get himself off the ground. Instead, he accidentally creates a small green bird that flies around him. Hal doesn't think much of it at first, but the bird becomes more important later when he realizes that John has managed to keep it alive even after taking off the ring. The bird is also an interesting symbol of John's character. Hal sees the ring mainly as a dangerous weapon, while John's first instinct is to create something harmless and alive. This suggests that John may eventually develop a very different relationship with the ring than Hal has. When Hal sends John to his house to retrieve the lantern, John gets a closer look at the life his mentor has built for himself. He finds Hal's Green Lantern costume and briefly holds it against himself, imagining what it would be like to actually become a lantern. This is important because John spends much of the episode questioning Hal, yet he still wants the opportunity to become like him. The costume represents the future John is trying to reach. He may not respect Hal's methods, but he still sees the Green Lantern role as something worth becoming. Hal's house also shows how unusual his life is. Even his pet, Earl, turns out to be a giant carnivorous plant. It's a small detail, but it reminds us that Hal has been living in a world far removed from normal human life for a long time. John's situation changes when he's kidnapped by a group of men and taken to Antan. Antan explains that the Manhunters are ancient synthetic beings that existed before the Green Lanterns. They can take on the appearance of other species and secretly live among them. Antan tells John that one of these creatures infiltrated his world and secretly built technology while preparing to destroy the population. By the time the Green Lanterns arrived, most of Antan's people had already been killed. This gives John a much clearer idea of what the Manhunters are capable of. They're not simply enemies who attack from the outside. Their greatest advantage is that they can hide in plain sight, making it almost impossible to know who can be trusted. Antan forces John to experience the destruction of his world by having the memories downloaded directly into his mind. John doesn't simply hear a story about what happened. He experiences the horror himself, which leaves him shaken and emotional. This scene shows John the darker side of being a Green Lantern. The job isn't just about flying, fighting, and protecting people. Lanterns are exposed to some of the worst events in the universe, and those experiences can stay with them. It also gives John a personal reason to take the Manhunter threat seriously. He now understands what these creatures can do, which makes the possibility that one is hiding in Rushville much more frightening. Antan believes that the Manhunter responsible for destroying his world is still alive and hiding in Rushville. He also believes Hal is protecting it because Hal arrived shortly after the aliens at the football field were killed. This immediately creates another reason for John to question his mentor. Hal already keeps secrets and refuses to explain everything about his past, so Antan's accusations are difficult for John to completely ignore. The episode doesn't confirm that Hal is protecting a Manhunter. Instead, it gives us enough information to make the possibility believable. Hal clearly knows more about the situation than he has told John, which keeps the mystery surrounding him alive. While John is dealing with Antan, Hal continues investigating Will Macon. He discovers that the metal detectors around the football field are actually designed to detect aliens. Hal immediately realizes that Will has been preparing for something much bigger than anyone in Rushville understands. When Hal confronts Will, he asks what other technology is hidden on the property. Will refuses to give him an answer, and one of his men suddenly shoots Hal. This confirms that Will is hiding something, but it doesn't necessarily make him the main villain. Will genuinely seems to believe that aliens are coming to Earth, and the technology around his property suggests that he has been preparing for this threat for some time. The problem is that his fear has clearly pushed him toward extreme actions. The episode therefore continues to blur the line between someone preparing for a real threat and someone becoming dangerous because of their fear of that threat. After Hal is shot, he wakes up in an empty hospital. Carrie uses the opportunity to ask him about Sinestro, the former Green Lantern who became his enemy. Hal reveals that Sinestro was once his mentor. This gives us another important part of Hal's past and helps explain why he can be so suspicious of other people. There's also a clear connection between Hal and John. Sinestro was once the person responsible for teaching Hal, and now Hal is responsible for teaching John. The question is whether Hal can successfully guide John without repeating the mistakes of his own mentor. Carrie also begins to understand Hal better during this conversation. Their relationship has been hostile since the beginning, but Hal's honesty about Sinestro creates a small amount of trust between them. When Hal and John meet again, Hal notices that John has kept the green bird alive even without wearing the ring. He's surprised because maintaining a construct without the ring is apparently an advanced ability. Hal then asks why John chose to create a bird. John refuses to give him a deeper explanation and simply says, "It's just a bird." He then turns it back into green dust. The bird can be seen as a symbol of John's natural instincts. The Green Lantern ring can create almost anything, but John's first creation is something peaceful and alive rather than a weapon. It also represents the part of John that Hal doesn't fully understand yet. Hal keeps trying to teach John his own way of being a lantern, but John may have abilities and instincts that can't simply be taught through Hal's methods. The episode ends with Hal visiting Sinestro in prison. Hal immediately asks him about the Manhunters, and Sinestro confirms that they would be one of the biggest threats the Green Lanterns could face. But Sinestro quickly changes the subject and asks about John. This is important because it suggests that Sinestro knows something about John that Hal may not know. It also connects John to the larger mystery surrounding the Manhunter. The episode therefore ends with several questions. Why is Sinestro interested in John? What does Antan know about him? How much does Hal already know? And why was John chosen to find the Manhunter? Episode 2 expands the mystery by introducing the Manhunters and showing just how dangerous they can be. John begins to understand the real cost of being a Green Lantern, while Hal continues investigating Will Macon and keeping secrets from his trainee. The Green Bird also suggests that John has abilities and instincts that make him different from Hal. By the end, Sinestro's interest in John adds another mystery to the story. The question is no longer just who the Manhunter is, but also why so many people seem to know something about John that he doesn't know himself. Make sure to like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video, and I will see you in the next one.